Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Welcome back to my channel. I am your host, G.I. Wingnut. We are continuing with this book, How Trump Rescued Scientology from the Deep State. We have made it to page 23. The impressive E-meter. In 1951, Hubbard initiated the development of an electronic measuring device, the so-called E-meter, to scientifically prove the physical charge in traumatic events. This was not only necessary in order to convince the doubters and critics, but also in order to be able to differentiate between possible imaginary and real events in the practical applications of Dianetics, the auditing sessions. So I just want to point out here from historical evidence, L. Ron Hubbard stole the design of the E-meter, which is actually a galvanometer, from Carl Jung. And he stole a lot from a lot of people. Moving on. The first monopoly claim on Dianetics in 1952. Interesting. I have a series called 1952 and a Planned Deception. So this should be interesting. In order to stop this breakthrough and the further expansion of Dianetics, an oil millionaire named Dan Purcell and self-appointed managing director of the Hubbard Dianetics Research Foundation led the foundation into bankruptcy in 1952, despite the high, unchecked demand for the subject. After liquidation, he privately purchased the Dianetics name, rights, and copyrights of the book, including the full address list of all Dianetics participants. Not only did he want to use it for his own profit, but Hubbard was forbidden to pursue his own field and keep his followers informed. Hubbard's legal representative later turned out to be more corrupt than incompetent, so Ron temporarily lost his rights to Dianetics and could not regain them until 1955. Persecuted, targeted. Who else do we know talks like that? Hubbard founded Scientology. As a replacement, L. Ron Hubbard, referred to as Ron or LRH from here on, founded a new domain with a new name, Scientology, the science of knowledge. So LRH is a standard annotation for L. Ron. Back to the book. While Dianetics is the science of the human mind and its effects on the body, and is dedicated to progress from man to the clear, Scientology is concerned with the spiritual being, the person himself, called Thetan, his relationships with others and Thetans, with the universe as a whole. Okay, so the way to reach clear is to graduate from the OT level or operating Thetan level of 3. That's when from what I understand, from what I've heard and what I've read, is where you learn about Xenu and his backstory. And you attain the status of clear when you realize you create your own reactive mind and you're not doing it anymore. In other words, you're rational about the world through the lens of Scientology, of course, not in all actuality, because there's not demons and Thetans running around everywhere, at least not in my experience. So back to the book. It also deals with one's spiritual potential. with technology aiming to achieve full spiritual freedom, a state called operating Thetan. This state is the full rehabilitation of our original abilities as a being, which have been lost over the eons in a downward spiral. There's a nice little reference back to Blavatsky's root races. Interesting. I do get into that whenever I do my theosophy piece over there in 1952 in A Planned Deception. All right, page 25. LRH prevents any future monopoly claim. When LRH was able to regain his rights to Dianetics in court in 1955, he took a far-sighted measure to prevent this type of expropriation from ever happening to him again. He also refers to those who expropriate Scientology as squirrels. That's what the Process Church was. And Charles Manson opted to hang out with the Process Church, which was the base of operations for the Son of Sam cult, rather than hang out with Scientologists. So rather than hang out with L. Ron Hubbard's people, Charles Manson opted to hang out with serial killers, which I think is an interesting point of reference. So, moving right along. He, L. Ron Hubbard, or LRH, knew that he could not rely on the services of commercial lawyers. They like to take the side of the highest bidder, even if it's criminal, as long as it paid them. Like Roy Cohn and Joseph McCarthy, along with J. Edgar Hoover during the Red Scare, or the Second Moral Panic of the United States in the 1950s. Communists behind every rock. All right, moving along. To this end, he founded a nonprofit organization called HASI, a Hubbard Association of Scientologists International, and bequeathed all his intellectual property to this organization. HASI itself was not allowed to be involved in the delivery of Dianetics and Scientology in the form of books, courses, or even auditing sessions, but was a pure membership organization to ensure the protection of Scientology and Dianetics. This meant that HASI could not be declared bankrupt because those who, quote, do nothing make no mistakes, end quote, and thus the danger of a hostile takeover was prevented. Really? Oh, moving along. Even in the event that LRH itself should be accused of becoming an insolvent, the rights would be unaffected. Furthermore, Ron granted all Scientologists the right to use these writings and lectures in the public letter of November 15th, 1958. It was much like in an earlier version or forerunner of the Creative Commons license that was widely used that are widely used today. Therefore, neither Dianetics nor Scientology can be monopolized today because a Scientologist, according to the definition of LRH, is not necessarily a member of a Scientology organization, but everyone who uses this knowledge for the improvement of life. Ron is looking for the simplified bridge to clear. The Dianetics procedure described in this book is quite demanding. Yeah, no doubt. From what I understand, it's more than quite demanding. It can actually break your mind, which is their objective. Moving on. I myself, the author, learned it in 1987 and have successfully used it since. But LRH found out that apart from himself, hardly any other student could produce a clear with it. So what happens when you have a science where you cannot reproduce the results? It's classified as a pseudoscience or conspiracy theory at best. Moving on. In the decades of the 1950s, LRH, he made an effort to further develop auditing procedures so that everyone with reading skills could produce clears and OTs with minimal effort. And this is Okay, and pause. This is why they use children to run the audits they're questionnaires that are based on the Kubark document, the same thing that MK Ultra developed from. So moving right along. In dozens of training courses across the English-speaking world, called ACC or Advanced Clinical Courses, LRH developed and tested auditing method. Tested. This guy's writing. He is a Swede, so there may be something lost in translation. LRH developed and tested an auditing method anyone could use to make themselves and others clear in co-auditing, ideally limiting the training course to 30 days. He recognized the many attempts as failed and continued his research. Significantly, today's fake Scientology church concentrates on upgrading these very courses, which LRH has abandoned, to the basics and teaching them to its members in 15 languages, while the real final auditors training is currently only available in English and, of course, highly falsified. But it wasn't until the 1960s that Ron became successful. He delivered the St. Hill Special Briefing Course, SHSBC, in the south of England, the ultimate professional training for auditors that takes a good year, but achieved the ambitious goal of simplifying training for everyone. Okay, so this would be St. Hill. They're actually going through some legal battles right now over there in England because of the fantastic work of Apostate Alex. Great stuff going on over there. Really good work. I think it's Apostate Alex. I don't know. There's so many of them to keep up with. Anyway, back to this. It was here, St. Hill, that Ron discovered that Dianetics alone can never erase the basic, the sought-after root source of all traumatic events. In this respect, the Dianetics book must be corrected. It only produces a state called Dianetics clear, or rather release, which feels as good and free as an absolute clear, like an enlightened one, but a state that is unfortunately not stable. I lost my light here. There we go. Unfortunately not stable, i.e., it may be lost again after months, years, or decades. Okay, so when they're going through these auditing courses, they're actually being hypnotized and they're put into a euphoric state, not too dissimilar to like what some of the New Apostolic Reformation preachers do with these really bizarre techniques that they use in their quote-unquote worship services, putting people in a hypnotic, suggestive state and just doing really wild stuff. Like calling down fire on people? What? Anyway, back to the article. On one hand, it's better than anything else offered in the self-improvement market so far. On the other hand, very disappointing for anyone who has lost the state of clear again and then feels cheated. This may explain why so many former Scientologists turn against the church. No, they turn against the church because of the abuses that happen. Go check out Serge Delmar's work. He was a child auditor. He's definitely got some things to say. All right. Go ahead and read the next couple of pages, or finish this page, and I guess read the next. Start the next page. Clear will only be achieved through the clearing course. In 1965, LRH developed the clearing course, a study course in which one learns how to audit oneself, this time without a partner, on the basic, and finally safely attain a state of clear. This was the pinnacle breakthrough from decades of research. Sure. This really works. Sure. As I can testify myself since 2004. Dianetics itself can help to make people freer. No, no, it doesn't. It takes them nowhere except deeper into a mind trap. He goes on to claim is indispensable to lay the foundation, healthy and happy, for the clearing course, but cannot itself produce any real, lasting clears. If you have enough faith, you'll be healed, allegedly. All right. Yeah, no, let's go ahead and do these next two pages, I think, and finish up this. These next two sections. Operating Thetan. Superman is no longer a fiction. Subsequently, LRH concentrated on working out the OT levels as well. And he only got it up to OT 8, and it was supposed to go up to like OT 15 or something. I don't know. Something ridiculous. The higher levels never were released. They never will be released. Okay, so subsequently, LRH concentrated on working out the OT levels as well, auditing procedures with which one can also rehabilitate oneself as a superhuman being through solo auditing. Quasi the Superman, the X-Man, and Escape from the Matrix. For those trained in the classics, one would give here the references to Plato's cave parable. Even for those familiar with Christian mysticism or Hindu teachings, OT abilities are no new concept. Oh, so they're saying, this guy's saying that they're really no better than the faith healers over there in the Christian corner. A certain Christian corner, anyway. So, continuing. Except that now, for the first time, one has the chance without leaving worldly, everyday life, without lifelong service in an ashram, monastery, or the like, to complete this study and to work his way out of his torment and suffering. The training and auditing stages that build on each other are called the bridge because it represents a path or a bridge between the lower states of earthly existence and the higher forms that are attainable. More precisely, the ones we once lost. Oh, man, that sounds like Blavatsky. Standard Dianetics is the latest state of development. In 1969, Ron developed Dianetics further and simplified it to Standard Dianetics. The new training course was called HSDC, Hubbard Standard Dianetics Course, published a few years later as Dianetics Today, so that anyone could learn it on their own without having to become members of Scientology organizations or attend a course. This falls into the 1960s period when secret services of various countries sent agents into Scientology churches to train and arm themselves in the Psy War between Russia and the United States. Hubbard once remarked that a good half of the students in the course room were probably these agents. Not so wild, because even Secret Service employees are only degraded Thetans who ultimately want to become free. Like a genie trapped in a bottle, he does everything to be let out. Sure. Man, this is some thick stuff here. I've heard it so many times over in the Q world. All right. Dianetics continued to play an important role in the bridge, both at the beginning of the bridge, helping one becoming drug-free, healthy, and happy, and at the later OT levels. Okay, so the drug-free, healthy and happy thing, that's making a reference over to Narconon, which is a Scientology front group. Let's get this last paragraph read, and then I'll close out this video. Still, in 1969, In the Class 8 lectures, and also in 1972 during the development of the expanded Dianetics, LRH made clear that Dianetics must be used again and again, even on the OT levels. As the most powerful procedure, Dianetics accompanies to a Scientologist from beginning to end. Today's Dianetics have been largely lost in the fake Scientology church, is massively suppressed, and predominantly only plays a role in the advertising for new members. Well, that was quite interesting, and we're about halfway through the book. I will be looking forward to reading more of this to you in the next video. Until then, please take care of yourself.